What if reality does not fully exist until it is observed? Not metaphorically, not spiritually, but physically. Modern physics discovered something deeply unsettling. At the smallest level of reality, particles do not behave like solid objects. They exist as probabilities, clouds of potential, until something interacts with them. Only then does reality take shape. This is known as the observer effect. For most of human history, reality was assumed to exist independently of us. The universe moved, matter behaved, and time flowed whether anyone was watching or not. Observation was believed to be passive, a simple act of noticing what already existed. That assumption held until modern physics reached the smallest levels of reality. At the quantum level, scientists discovered that reality does not behave the same way when it is observed. Particles act differently depending on whether they are measured. This wasn't philosophical speculation. It was experimental fact. The act of observation itself changed outcomes. This discovery became known as the observer effect, and it challenged the foundation of objective reality. The observer effect does not suggest that reality is imaginary. It suggests that reality is conditional. At the deepest levels, the universe appears sensitive to interaction, measurement, and information. What exists is not always fully defined until something interacts with it. This idea would force science to confront questions it was never designed to answer. The observer effect emerged in the early 20th century as physicists attempted to understand light and subatomic particles. Classical physics assumed particles had fixed properties regardless of observation. Quantum experiments shattered this assumption. Energy behaved in discrete packets, light acted as both wave and particle. Uncertainty began to collapse. One of the most important experiments was the double-slit experiment. When particles like electrons are fired through two slits without observation, they behave like waves, creating interference patterns. But when detectors observe which slit the particle passes through, the wave pattern disappears. The particle behaves like a solid object instead. Nothing about the experiment changes except observation. The particle does not gradually shift behavior. It instantly collapses from a wave of possibilities into a single outcome. This result has been replicated countless times. Observation alters reality at the quantum level, not because of belief, but because of interaction. In physics, observation does not mean human attention or thought. It means measurement interaction that extracts information. To observe a particle, another particle or wave must interact with it. That interaction disturbs the system, forcing it to adopt a definite state. Possibility collapses into fact. Before measurement, quantum particles exist as probability waves. They do not have a single position or state. They exist as multiple possibilities at once. Observation forces a decision. The wave function collapses and reality becomes specific. This is not metaphorical. It is mathematical and experimentally verified. This does not mean consciousness magically creates reality. It means reality at its core is not fixed until information is extracted. The universe behaves as if it responds to knowledge. This realization led some physicists to suggest that information, not matter, may be the most fundamental component of reality. Information requires distinction. Something must be known, and something must be unknown. Measurement draws a boundary between the two. When information is gained, reality reorganizes itself accordingly. This suggests that reality is not a static object, but a dynamic process shaped by interaction. This is where misunderstanding begins. Popular culture often claims that human consciousness directly collapses reality. Physics does not support this claim. The observer effect does not say thoughts create matter. It says interaction changes outcomes. Consciousness enters the discussion only because it is the most complex information processing system we know. The deeper implication is not mystical control but relational existence. Reality is not fully independent of observers, nor is it fully dependent on them. It exists through relationships between systems, measurements, and information. Humans are not outside the universe observing it. They are part of the system itself. Many physicists attempted to limit the observer effect to the microscopic world. They argued that quantum weirdness disappears at larger scales. But this explanation is incomplete. The principles still apply. They are simply masked by complexity. Classical reality is not separate, it is built on quantum foundations. This discomfort led science to avoid deeper philosophical implications. The observer effect was treated as a technical issue rather than an existential one. But the question remained unresolved. If reality changes when observed, then what is observation, and what role does perception play in shaping experience? At the human level, perception functions in a strikingly similar way. The brain does not record reality directly. It filters, predicts, and constructs experience. Out of countless sensory possibilities, consciousness collapses experience into a single narrative. Attention determines what becomes real in awareness. You do not experience all possible interpretations of reality. You experience the one your mind selects. In this sense, consciousness is not a creator of reality, but a selector. It narrows infinite potential into a coherent world. This parallel is why the observer effect resonates so deeply beyond physics. As the observer effect entered popular culture, it became distorted. Many claimed that human belief directly creates reality, that thoughts manifest matter. This is not what physics says. Quantum mechanics does not support wish-based reality. It reveals limits of objectivity, not magical thinking. The real insight is more unsettling. Reality does not fully exist in a defined state until interaction occurs. Observation is not imagination, it is information exchange. The universe appears incomplete without relationships. This challenges the idea of a detached, fully objective world. Human perception mirrors this process. The brain receives overwhelming sensory data, far more than it can process. To survive, it collapses possibilities into a single interpretation. What you perceive is not raw reality, it is a selected version optimized for function. Attention acts like a measurement device. What you attend to becomes vivid, stable, and real. What you ignore fades into uncertainty. Your experience of reality is shaped less by the world itself and more by where awareness is directed. This does not mean reality is fake. It means experience is constructed. Just as quantum systems remain probabilistic until measured, human experience remains ambiguous until interpreted. Meaning emerges through selection, not creation. The ego functions as a stabilizer. It reduces complexity by defining identity, beliefs, and narratives. Without it, experience would feel overwhelming. Ego collapses psychological possibilities into a consistent self, just as observation collapses quantum states. This stability comes at a cost. Rigid identity narrows perception. New possibilities are filtered out. The world appears fixed, predictable, and separate. What feels like reality may simply be a repeatedly collapsed pattern reinforced by habit and belief. Understanding the observer effect does not give control over reality. It gives responsibility. How systems interact determines outcomes. At the human level, how attention, belief, and interpretation interact shapes experience, behavior, and meaning. This reframes free will. Choice is not unlimited creation, but selective collapse. You cannot choose every possibility, but you influence which ones stabilize. Awareness becomes a tool, not a power. If reality depends on interaction, then the universe is not a finished object. It is a process. Something is always participating. This raises a question science avoids, but cannot eliminate. What is the ultimate observer, if any? Physics does not answer this. It stops at equations, but it opens the door. If information is fundamental and reality requires interaction, then existence may be relational at every level. The universe may be less like a machine and more like a dialogue. The observer effect does not prove consciousness creates reality. It proves that reality is incomplete without relationship. Humans are not outside the universe watching it. They are the universe becoming aware of itself through limited perspectives. The deepest implication is humility. We do not stand above reality, we participate in it. What we observe, how we measure, and where we place attention all shape the world we experience. Reality is not just out there, it is happening through us. If you made it this far, we thank you for watching. And for more content on reality creation, consciousness and more, like, comment and subscribe.